thanks for doing this. Was it something we said at Sky? Was it you weren't quite getting enough airtime, or why the sudden decision just up and go?
So I reckon it would have been just after the Ashes, when obviously everything happened with Ashley Giles, Silverwood, Graham Thorpe, and then I sort of was speaking to Straussy a little bit, and because we played golf occasionally, we would speak every now and again. He said, "Do you ever fancy doing a real job?" And I sort of went, "What do you mean?" And he said, I think you'd be a good candidate for the MD's role. And I said, "Look, I could be interested, mate." But I never ever thought that I would ever not be doing the Sky job, unless I got sacked by then. Don't get me wrong there. And then I went to Pakistan and didn't really think much more. We had a few chats and all of that type of stuff that goes on in these things. And then things moved quite quickly, actually, after that. And I sort of then found myself walking into Lords just after Easter, and I've gone from doing a job which I loved as much as anything in the world to now doing this, which I suppose the attraction of it was that you feel like you can make a difference. Do you know? And that was the thing, that the only thing that could have got me away from doing what I was doing with you and everyone else was, the chance to really see if you can have an impact on something. And, that's more valuable, I think, than it. I really hate talking like that, but that's, almost in a way more valuable than anything else.
So you're quite proud of yourself, because the easy option is to carry on talking a good game, as you've told everyone about me and Atherton. The difficult road is to actually go and do something about it. You were an excellent broadcaster. You could have carried on down that road, but you've taken a difficult road.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, you sort of have no idea, but that's what it's like when you're a player and you have those butterflies or whatever it is, and you don't know. When you get picked for England, you have no idea if you're going to be any good. You just hope all the time that you are. You sort of go into it. Now, I reckon no matter who you are, you might have faith, you have faith in your views and all of that stuff in this thing, but you have no idea if you're going to be good at it, if you're going to be able to adapt, to learn, all of that. And, I generally just, it's that challenge of it, that's what keeps you going all the time. It was just something that, every time I get out of bed now, there's something going on, and you're always thinking about it, and now you've got to put your money where your mouth is, so it's going to be interesting to see how
would that be the biggest change, you would say, in your lifestyle? Whereas when we do what we have done over the years, you switch on, switch off, right, I've got to do a cricket show tomorrow, an interview, I'll switch on now. Now you're thinking about it 24/7, and you've made a big decisions, and you've still got some massive decisions to make.
Yeah, and you do, but although I always was like that, I think, like when it's about cricket, you're often, when I was doing stuff with you guys, you're often thinking about it, because you can't, because it's what you know, and you're always trying to, England are playing well, you're thinking about stuff, England aren't, Kent, whoever it is, structures, all these things. I was always thinking about that, but now you don't have that release as much as what you do when you're working on the other side of the fence, where you can go off and play golf, pick the kids up, do all of those great things that lifestyle allows you to do. Now there's a trade-off with that, where you can't do that as much as you used to. But the trade-off as well is that you have a chance to see if you've got, you can make a difference.
What did you make of the reaction to you being appointed? Because some people said, I don't know if you care about reaction actually, but some people did say, what does he know about administration? This is just yet another jobs for the boys appointment.
No, I don't not read things, and I don't go out seeking it. I find a lot of people say, like, I don't read anything, I don't care, and then they reel off the last 20 things I said about them and think, okay, you did. So I don't, but that doesn't really bother me. At that point as well, I didn't know exactly what the job was. I thought it was going to be, look, this is surely just a cricket job where you've got to appoint coaches. You then got to manage people, which I've done a lot of, all those types of things. And it is in cricket. I sort of looked at some of the stuff and thought, I'm not working at the Hadron Collider trying to work out, astrophysics and all this type of stuff. I'm literally, trying to make decisions on cricket, which I reckon I've got 30 years experience in. Dealing with coaches, I've seen coaches at their best, I've seen them at their worst, I've seen the best coaches, I've seen the best coaches crumble, I've seen all these things, I've worked with all of them, I've been in the system, I know how the ECB works, what it's like to go through as a player, all these types of things. And I've done a lot of the administrative side of it when I was doing the job at Kent, but it's not physically doing it. I'm not the only person there. There are lots of people, and I think what you do in any sort of leadership role is you bring the people in who are good at those sides of it. So the things that I'm good at, then I've got to make sure I'm focusing on, and you bring the other sides of it, that's where you bring in your support and you bring the people in and you make sure that you get the best people in at the various roles along the way, and my job is to manage them and actually make them feel like they've got a part to play as well and have an impact.
Well, you certainly did that with Ben Stokes. I was watching you on Sky Sports News and I admired really the answer you gave to the question was he was the only choice. And you went, no, if there were 10 choices, I'd have gone for Ben Stokes. And I know if I was captain and I'd heard that, that would have made me feel $1 million. But without going into Ben, it's been well documented. The most important thing with him, I would say, was the mental side. Someone that's had, you know, the mental problems of last summer, mental health problems. How much did you have to make sure that he is in the right place to do that job? And how did you go about doing that?
Well, obviously you have to make sure, don't you? Because you're not just going to go, right, okay, you have to make sure whoever it is, whoever the captain would be, that they are in the right state in everything they do, the right stage of their life to go on and do it, and that they have leadership qualities, which all those things he had. And as I said on that, the one thing I did see is that the last couple of years have been horrendous for that team. Not performance as such, which it obviously hasn't been as good as they would have liked, but that has been a real tough couple of years. And for someone like Ben, for someone like all of those players, it's clearly had an impact. And actually, like probably a lot of the population, a lot of the world, we don't quite know exactly what impact that's had on every single person, and to different degrees. COVID will have had an impact. But Ben is sort of strong enough to be able to take himself out of that now, or was back then, to think, you know what, this is getting a bit much, and take himself out of an environment at times, which I think is a sign of courage, really, and actually mental strength and knowing your mind, all the things you need to have to be a good captain. And I also think that I have a view that, you know, in England, we think our leaders are these people that we sort of, we earmark them from a very young age, and we think, you know, they might be part of a system, part of the establishment, and they might be the, whoever it is, the choir boy, whatever, without digging them out, that you think, oh, they'd be perfect for leaders. But sometimes it's the people who might have made a few mistakes along the way, might not have been the obvious choice when they were 23, that have actually gone on to be great leaders. You know, I remember when you got the job, there weren't many people saying you should have done it, you know, and you ended up, you know, a half-decent captain.
So do you have a bit more empathy? You mentioned empathy with Ben, actually, but empathy with the previous regime. We sat there on the cricket show, you know, do this, do that. But actually now you've gone into their shoes and seen what they've gone through with COVID, with bubbles. Do you understand better some of those decisions, and hence should we have been a bit more sympathetic?
No, without question, I have a hell of a lot more empathy and a lot more understanding for what that was and what they've been through. You know, for us, it was all right. We sat at home, you know, go off, do whatever, come out, speak for an hour, and basically react to what's going on in the cricket and react to what people are saying and doing. You know, we didn't live what they've done. You know, and there's a lot of people that have had a shocking time of it over the last couple of years. But that has had an impact on that England team, more so than any other team in the world. There's no question about that. England are the ones who have gone round and they have made sure that cricket continued, more so than any other country, actually. Certainly Australia, New Zealand, all these teams, no one has done as much to keep cricket going than what that England team have over the last 2 years. And I think it was impossible for us to really understand that and what it was like to be in those quarantines, what it was like to be in the bubbles, what it was like to, even when we were in England last summer, and we were having a great time, weren't we? And we're going around and we're doing the 100 and we're just living life as normal, and they're all in bubbles. And it wasn't even just in the hotel, it was the lead up before they went away, or the lead up before a test series. They weren't allowed to go and socialise and do other stuff, and that's had an impact. And it's had a massive impact on performance as well, I think. But I still maintain they still made some bad decisions. We still
Does that explain the bad decisions? And if so, you know, I've spoken to you about the fact that Joe Root's having to do a million things, the coach probably having to do a million things, the manager's trying to sort out where you're eating your breakfast and things like that in a bubble. Is it important that you now, I know COVID hopefully is diminishing, hopefully, that you just make sure that Ben Stokes is completely focused on the decisions he has to make. Whoever you appointed as coach makes those decisions, and you look after the periphery.
Yeah, I think so, and you hope that we're in a time when that doesn't monopolise all my decisions. I didn't get in this job, as Ashley Giles wouldn't have done. I got in this job to try and make a difference, not to decide of the best living conditions in a bubble, whether we go, whether we do this. You know, it's about how are we going to try. I want to make decisions to actually say, how are we going to win a game of cricket? How are we going to win a test series? How are we going to become better at test match cricket, continue on and evolve in white ball cricket? And I don't want that to be about, you know, you can't go down to the pool, and if you do, whatever it was. And I feel for them in that, because that is not why any of us got into any of those positions. It doesn't mean that when you don't pick aside a certain team for the first test in the Ashes, would it have had a bearing? Yes, maybe, but it's still a bad cricket decision. But it certainly explains a little bit of why. And what it also made me think, I remember just thinking, oh my God, Joe Root, how well has he done? I mean, we can't, we obviously know he's had a great year, but he has had that year when he was doing everything as well, it seemed. There was so much put on his shoulders, and he was trying to be the ambassador for the England team that he is as a captain. And in a team that was struggling, and the way that he was playing and what he was able to do, and being captain, it's honestly it's one of the great achievements. It won't, you know, statistically, it will just look in history as he got this amount of runs, and he did this, and he was this as a captain. But it won't actually say in there, oh, and by the way, it was the most horrendous time to be an England cricketer, where you're under so much pressure, and the captain was the lone man doing it all. It's one of the great sporting achievements, and as well for him to then now seem to have somehow parked it all to some degree, and he's like, right, what do you need? How do we move on from here? How can I help Ben? We probably don't realise how lucky we are to have him. I mean, you've often spoke very highly of him, but
when you slagged him off, I've tried to back him up a little bit, haven't I?
Exactly.
This is real dragging back session from you.
I know, how long have we done on it? You know?
Your next major decision is the coach and the coaches. Why have you decided to split it, and how do you make sure that it doesn't end up like it did with Ashley Giles and Andy Flower and people being pulled one way then the other? How are you going to make sure it works?
Well, there's lots of different reasons, but probably one of the main reasons is because it's just England's schedule going forward is very busy. So it's not too bad actually if you're the test match coach, because you will get a bit of time to prepare, do all these things, plan, have a bit of time off. So if you're a test match cricketer alone, it's not that jam-packed a schedule. But if you're those multi-format players, or you're one coach doing it all, it's literally jump on a plane, go somewhere, and then a week later you're starting a different format again. So you won't be able to prepare your players the same. You'll have a group of players in one part of the world getting ready for test matches, a group of players in another part of the world playing in a massive world competition in either T20 or 50 over cricket. And that's only going one way, which is fine, as long as we then pivot to the point where we have two coach or split coaches and almost split coaching teams, because it can't be like net bowlers who turn up at pre-season and the staff bowlers are bowling 30 minutes and then the net bowlers bowl for 3 days and you flog them and never let them have a rest. So it's going to have to be a complete change of thinking of how we do the coaching. I also think that because of that, there's more understanding about it. I think more countries will follow, even though they don't play as much cricket as England. I think there's more understanding to that from the coaches who get into it at that point in the interview process. It's like, by the way, you might not have your best team throughout this thing. You know, yes, priority might be the World T20 at some point, but at the moment it's Test cricket. So if you want this job, that might happen. I'll be very open and honest with them at the start of that's part of the deal, which I'm sure won't be an issue. So that's for me to manage, to make sure that works, that relationship between the two works. And the other point, I think you get a better list of candidates wanting to go for the job. There's a lot of people, I think, that would be more interested, and that's what I've never appointed an England coach before, so I can't categorically, but I would say that it's a pretty good field of candidates we got, and nearly all of them are like, I wouldn't be going for this if it was one. And that's, you know, that's what you want. You just want the best person, the best people, and you build the structure around them. I've never understood, and it's the same at Kent. It's like, you know, we need to get the structure right. Don't worry about that, because you have a great structure with bad people with a load of donuts, it's just rubbish. You know, you get a bad structure with great people, it will work, in my opinion. We've got to try and get both.
Your problem is that some of those great people are working in the IPL. Mm-hmm. What if they say, can I carry on working in the IPL? I'd like the job, I'd like to carry on working in the IPL. Is that an issue for you or not? No,
it isn't if they're the best person. Because you have to move with the times, don't you, really? And you've got to understand, like with players, I don't see why if you're, say, Joss Buttler, for example. Joss Buttler can play the whole of the IPL, but a coach couldn't do it. I don't see that as an issue. At the moment, and who knows where we're going in 5, 6, 7 years' time, the IPL, there's no international cricket on during the IPL, so I don't see that as an issue in the day and age we live in, where, you know, it would be an issue actually if you're a coach doing that. And also, you know, everything, you've got to take everything in its individual case. So someone like you said, well, how can you then call someone back from how could you call Jofra back from the IPL when the coach is there the whole time? And go, well, I'll tell you what, the coach isn't running into bowl and going to get injured, you know. So you can't just have blanket rules for everything. You've got to look at each individual case and think, right, what's the best thing for us to do here? And I would much rather have the best person for 10 months of the year than someone not as good for 12.
You want the best person. It looks like, in recent times, the best people have been foreign coaches. Mm-hmm. Why do you think we aren't producing the coaches English? There's the odd example, Mark Robinson. I hear Mark Elaine's name bandied around in the last couple of days or whatever. There's some obvious exceptions to the rule. Why do you think that's the case, and what can you? Does it come under your remit to try and do something about that?
No, but I think you have an input into it, or you've got a chance to speak and try and influence that part of it. It doesn't come directly under my remit, especially domestic cricket, all those types of things. But I'm involved in speaking to the people in that when it comes to pitches and all kinds of stuff. You know, it's not my call on all of that stuff, but I'm definitely keen, and I've spoken to people about being involved in the process of all of that type of stuff. As far as English coach, I mean, this has gone on for a long time now. Yeah, and we've got to look at how we educate our coaches. We make sure the same thing as well with our coaches. You want to make sure coaching at times is like a player. You want to invest in the right people all the time. So you've got to earmark, you know, because there's a lot of other things you can do, like you and I would have gone on to the other side of the fence, which is a very attractive part of cricket, really. And we've got to make sure that we're seeing, as they go through the system, or if they're completely outside of it, if they're going through whatever courses they're doing, that we've got to earmark, say, okay, this person's worth the investment. These are the ones we've got to try and make sure we just go, we keep an eye on them throughout our system, because they might be in 5 or 6 years' time, might be the best person to go and do that job. You know, why we don't? Because at times we've had English coaches, when they've had a go of it, hasn't worked particularly well. So the reputation with English coaches at the moment isn't as good as it should be. Plus, they don't get, but the caveat to that is we don't give them the opportunities that these foreign coaches get. You know, they coach in the IPL, even the 100. There's no English coach. There's very few English coaches in that. We took the option to go for overseas coaches. But it's give and take on both sides. English coaches have to be the ones actually that we're going, you know what, bang, when these jobs come up, you know, they should be putting themselves in a position where there's 5 or 6 names, but there isn't at the moment. You know, there's people that are in the running, but it's not like every coach in our system we're looking going, great, you know, this is the person to take us forward, and we've got to do something about that.
One thing you said about Ashley Giles, your predecessor, was that you were critical, strong word, that he was very much a players' director of cricket. He would never say no to the players. I think your quote was, the only thing he said no to was football in the end, football in the morning.
No, let me tell you about that. What I said that to you off air, and I asked you the question, And then you nicked that in one of your columns.
I nicked all your good lines, basically.
Yeah, and
There's
then,
not many, but there was a couple over the years.
So anyway,
and that was a good one. Are you willing, trying to deflect me here, but are you willing to say no to the players? Are you, you know, if a player comes up to you and there's £1 million IPL deal, but you feel it's better for English cricket that he didn't do it that year, are you strong enough to be unpopular with the players or a player?
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that, but it's these things are not binary decisions as much as you look at them. It's like things like the IPL is going to go on for some time with that, because it's not a simple decision to make, because then what happens if the player turns around and says, right, fine, I refuse to have a central contract, I'm just going down that way. So you've always got to do what's right for English cricket, you've got to make the right decision. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not a hard thing to do if it's the right thing to do. You know, so when a player's turning around, if they're doing something that isn't going to benefit the team, isn't going to benefit English cricket, the answer's no. You know, and that's what, when Ben Stokes spoke the other day, he wanted selfless cricketers, but you've got to be smart in how you do it. It doesn't mean that you have to turn around to someone and just say no without a good reason. So if there's ever a good reason, we'll weigh it up, look at what the options are, and you just make a decision on it.
Have you been going through all the stuff you've ever said on Sky? Because I know our viewing figures of our YouTube stuff have, because various journalists have been quoting you and looking back at what you said. Do you think you have to be consistent with what you've said over the years, or do you think once you're now in a new job, you see things differently and you'll just do it what suits now?
No, I don't think you ever get married to a position, to be honest. You try, and you've got to be able to adapt. I think in the whole world at the moment, we seem to, if you've got a view on something, you can't ever flinch from that, and I think that's the biggest load of nonsense ever, because things evolve, players get better. You know, we've been critical of players in the past. That doesn't mean I think they're going to be like that forever. You can't have a 22-year-old who I've said no, I don't rate them or what have you, or you're critical of their techniques. You can't then have that view forever and ever. They might go away and improve, they might change, they might prove you wrong, and then you've got to be able to go, yeah, no, I got that wrong. And I've no issue with that at all, actually. I don't have any issue, because I think we get so worried about being wrong, whereas actually the worst thing about being wrong is when you stick to that position knowing that you are, because you think you're going to save face. I couldn't care about that. I'll just try and pivot quickly, pretend I never said it, and go the right direction.
Is that like the reverse trading that you... I never understood that saying. You must have used 5 million times on Sky.
What, calling you a backtracker?
Yeah, backtracker. Because
not backtracker.
Because there must be two Rob Keys out there, because there was a Rob Key on the cricket show that said he agreed with Strauss's decision not to take Anderson and Broad to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And recently you've been to see Jimmy and Broadie and said, I really want you and I want you back in the team and we all love you and everything's forgiven.
Yeah, I think I understood the decision. I understood what Straussy was doing and what he was saying and all that. I had no issue with it at all, but in my opinion, you know, they should come back, and that's what's happening. The good thing is that Ben Stokes, I think he was sort of prepared for an argument when we spoke about it. He's like, right, Jimmy and Broadie are coming back. I just went, yeah, no, that's fine. And then we sort of moved on. But no, I genuinely just, I don't look at everything as just black or white. I always look at the reason. I say, you know, and I always thought this as a pundit, if there's logic behind what they're doing to some degree, then fine. You know, I can understand why people are doing it. It's like when England, there was no logic to me when England in the World Cup in 2015 dropped Alistair Cook and then brought in Gary Ballance. That was like, there's no part of me that can understand why you would do that. But there's part of me that can understand with Broad and Anderson away from home, getting on a bit as well when you wanted to try and find out about other people. I said, yeah, okay, I can understand that. Doesn't mean that I would have done it, but I'm shown now that they've come back.
Another important decision you've got to make is about selection.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going back to the old system of national selector or whatever. You said earlier about how people are more important than the structure. There's no point having the best coach and the best captain if you don't select the best players. Yeah. How difficult is it to get a national selector? And for a while, are you going to be involved in selection? And should you be more your job depends on how England are playing. So should you be more involved in selection?
Well, what you want, first of all, you just want the best person. Who that is, I don't know. because it's a very, very important role. It's a tough job as well. And actually, the head selector's job, as it's been in the past, is a full-time job as well. And I've got lots of other stuff to do. So it's, you know, it's a good job actually, but it's a tough job. So in the perfect world, you wouldn't have your managing director doing it. Now, because you might have had a managing director who's not necessarily with a cricket background, all different reasons. So in the perfect world, you'd have the best person to be the head selector. And what, again, the way I sort of see it with selection is you just want the good minds that you can have around you, and that might involve the captain, the coach, depending on how they see it. I think a lot of the problems we've had with selection over the years have been when the captain feels like he's got no say in selection, when the captain actually feels like I've been given a team here and I've got no input into it, which I don't think is right at all actually. And I think Ben Stokes has got a good cricket brain and has a lot of value to add in doing that. There's obviously going to be a new coach coming in. You know, some coaches don't want an input into selection, some do. So that'll have to work out when that person comes in. But I think that in the setup we've got at the moment, we've got enough good people around to be able to sit around and debate the team. And then you always have an odd number, I think that's the key, and you have a vote and you say, right, okay, we've spoken about this enough. We've spoken about whether so-and-so comes in or so-and-so, right, what's your view, what's your view, what's your view, what's your view? And that, hopefully, I think, ends up with you making a good decision. And at the moment, I can chair that debate, I can get that going. And I have no issue with that we can get people in to make the right decision on that, but who the person is to do that role, to chair it all, to speak to the media, I don't know, but I'll take time to find out who it is to make sure it's the right person. And in the meantime, I can chair that debate. And yeah, as I never got the, now we all know who's accountable for selection in the media. You know, when we're on the media side of it, it's like, you know, now you'll know who's accountable. Who cares whether the people outside the environment know who's accountable for selection? Because you never do anyway. Chris Silver was in charge of everything, and I bet you that he didn't make every decision going in. So it's irrelevant, really. It's not for, if you want to know, I said the other day, if you want to know who to point the gun at, you can point it at me, that's fine. But until we find someone to do it, then that's how it will work.
Just remind me there, point the gun. I think Ravi Shastri did a piece recently in The Guardian about he accused you better develop a thick skin. Do you think you do need to? Because pundits like myself will be pointing the gun in your direction. Do you need that thick skin, or you know, do you still going to be the same old Rob Key that will just go with the flow? Well,
yeah, I'm not. You know, let's say take you for example. I'm not necessarily. You know, if I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. Really, I'm not going to go and watch the Sky vodcast all the time to know what you're saying. But I think the absolute key with all of these things is that you don't flinch from the path you want to go on. You know, it can't shake you. It doesn't mean you can't adapt, and you might say something, or, you know, whoever it is in the media might say something. You think, you know what, you always got to work out if there's merit in it. You know, and you've always got to work out, actually, okay, I can't just think, oh no, they're wrong. But it's actually got to look at it and say, okay, is there merit in that? But ultimately, where you can't let that influence your decision making because you're worried about what someone's going to say about you, and I can't see that being an issue personally. Yeah, but I used to, you know, you and I would speak often about, like, probably opening myself up here, but even things like Twitter when I was commentating, you get a lot of, you know, abuse or whatever on there, but I could look at that. I could sort of search my name. I'm going to get nailed for this. I could sort of search my name when I'm going, and you'd be like a load of people saying he's this, he's that, he's that, he's that.
You used to Twitter search your name.
Yeah, you did that. Don't even start. You do that all the time. You've done that. I learned this from you.
I have no
Don't
idea
you
what
cut
you're
that
about.
out. I learned that from him because he said, I'm quoting him here. And you would, but then every now and again you might be the odd person go, if I had a penny for every time Rob Key said da-da-da, I think, geez, do I say that a lot? And actually, so it can help, but you have to be thick-skinned for it and not
especially when you were
flinch.
slagging off those pictures in India, you were Twitter searching yourself then.
I know I was, because I wasn't scared. Well, anyway.
When I heard you were going for this job, or it was been offered to you, I was like, he's a blooming good selection. Not so much just because of the big decisions, but you know cricket from grassroots up and county cricket. And that's going to be your next challenge. Firstly, are you quite buoyed by what you've seen so far at the start of this season? As in, the pitches look pretty good, the overseas players look great, the standard of cricket looks pretty good, spinners are bowling. Are you pleased with what you're seeing as Director of English Cricket?
I think what it proves, to be honest, and it's going to be really interesting what happens throughout this summer with pitches and stuff like that. But in my opinion, what we've seen this summer shows how vital those pitches are. And we can talk, people can go, we need 10 games, we need 20 games, we need, you know, lots of blast games, we need no 100, we know all these things that people talk about. None of it matters if you play on poor wickets in 4-day cricket. You know, all this stuff about white ball focus, all of that type of stuff is irrelevant if you play on poor pitches. You know, and we're seeing now, I watched Parkinson bowl the other day for a long time, and that is how he's going to develop, that's how he's going to learn. And you've seen counties will now be sitting there going, you know, I heard some of the talk, there was a game Kent played and people were saying, cool, it was a flat pitch. I said, flat pitch, you're 80 for 7 and the game was over in 4 days. A flat pitch is when it's 600 plays 600. You know, we've lost what we think these pitches are and that. And it's, to me, I've been very pleased to see, you know, batsmen getting runs, big scores, you know, we're now sort of at a point where there's like, looks like there's almost a bit of a logjam in the middle order with some of these players, whether it was Brook, people like that, watching these guys play, and that is what you want to see. You know, and you start, and counties will be going around. I said, I'll tell you why some of these pitches are flat, because you're going in there with 75-mile-an-hour bowlers. You know, go in there with someone with a bit of heat, with a bit of mystery spin if you can find it. Take a punt on a youngster who might be a leg spinner.
I was going to ask you that because already there's been the comments, not so much the Kent 80 for 8 Super Kent sort of stuff, it's the 500 plays 400, and it's a slow burner, and you're there the last day at last hour at Headingley, and the lights are on or whatever. But people are finding that can be a slightly duller watch than 150 plays 180 or whatever. Do you just like blank the watchability, if that's a word, of county cricket for the bigger picture?
But I think that this is the interesting thing with this format now. I was in Pakistan, as you know, doing Australia versus Pakistan. I think it was the second test. And it went right down to the wire. And we got to tea on the last day, and all 3 results were possible. Rizwan and Babar Azam were batting, Pat Cummins, Mitchell Stark, and whoever else was bowling. And people were moaning about that pitch. You know, they ended up blocking out and not getting to the score. And all I saw was people, I'm thinking, what do you want from cricket? You've just seen the best nearly the 2 best players, Pat Cummins and Babar Azam, at the top of their game, going at it for 5 days. You know, and then it's gone to the last day and the last session, and there's still 3 results possible. What do you want from cricket, that long form of cricket? Because that's what the game is about. It is not meant to be over in 2 days. When whoever it was decided on 4-day cricket, it wasn't say, I tell you what, we'll have 4 days, but really we want it over in 2. It was to go on to watch it. It's the journey that you love on that. It's not this instant thing that we want all the time. If you want that, you've got the 100, you've got T20 cricket, you've got 50 overs for someone, which is great. You've got all these things for different people. But the longest form is about the skill level. It's about watching how I grew up, you know, watching the West Indians come at you, boys, Shane Warne bowling, all of that. That is what the longest form is about. It's not about just seeing wickets go down every minute of the day and it over in a day and a half and 4 for 4 and stuff. It's like, really? That's not, every now and again that might be all right, but 4-day cricket is there for those people who love that form of the game.
And I'm, again, not sure if this falls under your remit or not, but it'd be interesting for people to know what their managing director of English cricket thinks of the county game. So at a bit of a point now where some are saying 18 counties, we brought up with 18 counties, we love our county cricket, it made us the cricketers we were, and some are saying too many players, Kevin Peterson, make it franchise cricket, reduce it, quality, not quantity. Where do you stand on that?
I think that county cricket has done and can keep producing quality cricketers if the environment is right, and that's where it goes back to pitches, stuff like that. I think some of our greatest cricketers have come out of county cricket. That era, 2005, nearly all of them were
That
from
era you played in?
Yeah, my era.
Right.
We all came out of, we all came out of that era, and England's best era of Test cricket, which is pretty much our most successful time in Test cricket, is like 2003. It's basically from when you gave up and Vaughan took over. So it's basically from the end of Hussain to the end of Strauss was like our most successful era of Test cricket. And we beat that great, they beat that great Australian side in 2005 with Vaughan and all that smashed you every time, and you were all scared to play against them. And Flintoff, Harmison, Jones,
your mates,
all my mates, all came out of that era, and that came from county cricket. And I remember I played, as you're saying, I remember what that was like, and then I remember what it was like later on, when it got tougher and it got worse and it got. Your bowlers you're facing, it's like, gee, we used to have 2 overseas bowlers, Warne and Stuart Clark at Hampshire, yet I'm finding this harder now, and the bowling standard is nowhere near as good. So I'm optimistic about county cricket. Does it need tweaking? Probably, because we've effectively added a month to our season. And I also, whether people like it or not, we have to secure this game for the next generation. We cannot just sit. It'd be lovely if we could go. Everyone's just got to fall in love with this game the way we did, but we are not in that time. My kids do not do things the way that I did things back then. I'm sure that's the same for everything. There's so many more options for them now.
So are you still a 100 fan? Now you're on the other side of the fence. No, I'm being serious. Yeah. Are you, when you were a broadcaster, we know it was a great tournament to work on. We saw the reaction in the crowd. We saw our kids, the way they reacted to it. Now that you have to fit that in to making England a better red ball side, does it cause you a headache, or are you still, that stays?
No, I'm still a fan of it, because I was involved with it last year. I saw the crowds. I saw my wife, who texted me not long ago and said, I'm getting some 100 tickets, and I sort of thought, I might be able to get them free. Do you know what I mean? But she would never have done, because she went last year with my kids who are 15 and 13, and they loved it. I saw all of that stuff, and I think it is so important, that we try and make sure in a competitive market, if I sound like a corporate numpty.
That's your first corporate chat I've heard.
And I finished it off with numpty, which goes right. But my point is that we have to give them something that they can fall in love with this game, and then go to the longer forms and all of that. And I personally, I'm not negative about it. I actually think we can have everything in this country. I think we can. There is to me, it has never been, and that's what annoys me a little bit about the rhetoric from both sides, from the people who support the 100 and the people who are against it. It's like what I was saying earlier. It's like they've taken a position and they are entrenched in that. And it doesn't matter what happens. Either side will not budge on that. And it just gets you, we've seen it in the world we live in, it gets you nowhere in life. And I actually think that we can have it all. We can have things like the 100 that are going to engage the next generation, but then we can also have a good test side. I still think I think there's some really talented cricketers that just haven't been playing to their potential. You cannot tell me, and a lot of this might have been COVID and what's gone on over the last 2 years for those players, the amount of cricket, the bubbles, the quarantine. We've not been beat playing anywhere near our best. The players we've got are so much better than what they've shown at times, and hopefully now we can prove that. It might take a bit of time, but I think county cricket can still be a breeding ground for international class cricketers, as it has been for some time. And I think we can also make sure that my kids, your kids, everyone else will fall in love with the game the way we did.
How important is it that you don't take your eye off the white ball cricket as well? Something that was said about Andrew Strauss and the focus on white ball cricket. We may have taken our eye off the red ball stuff, or is that just unstoppable now? What's happening in English white ball cricket?
No, I don't think anything's unstoppable. I think you take it for granted, then all of a sudden you find out, oh no, it sort of hits you and you don't realise where that's come from. That actually we're nowhere near as good as what we were. But I think what they did so well, and this is the same point with the Test side, they changed the culture or the mentality of the way they played that game. They made it very clear what type of cricketer they wanted, what type of character, what type of player, the way they were going to go about their business. And that then won them the World Cup. It wasn't that we're going to win the World Cup, that's it, we're focusing on that. They focused on that brand of cricket, that mentality, and that's why it's lasted longer. So we've got to keep on evolving that. And whoever comes in on that can't just be a facilitator coach who is just going to think, there you are, Owen, all yours. Throw a few balls and do all that type of stuff. They've got to have one eye on the fact that, no, this team's got to keep getting better, because like the Australians would have found when you were playing, everyone's trying to catch them up, everyone's trying to get there. So what the great teams are good at is keep evolving. So whoever that coach is has to know that the question you're going to be asked, so yeah, great job at the moment, you got the best side or one of the best sides in the world, you're a good chance of winning the World Cup, but you got to maintain that, and you got to keep evolving with it. And the same thing with the Test side, really. It's not about trying to go and win a series here, win overseas, all of that. Of course, that's important. It's about what type of cricketer, what mentality, what brand of cricket, what do we want our red ball cricketers to be. So whoever comes in, they know that they fit into that system, or they've got to fit into that system, and that then takes care of the results.
Have you spoken to Owen as to what he needs, what he wants, and what his future, does he, where he fits into your planning in the future?
Yeah, I've spoken to Owen quite a bit, probably not as much as Ben, because like everything at the moment, the red ball cricket is a bit more, it's closer to us, and there's a bit more work to do on that. And the beauty, and that's why I split coaches, it's a good time to do it, because you've got Owen Morgan. On Morgs, I personally, he'll always do what's right for English cricket, Morgs. I think he's not, he's pretty clear on that, I think, himself. But for me, personally, and I've captained in T20, not at that level, white ball cricket. If you've got a great captain, which Owen Morgan is, that's like playing with 12. You impact, as a captain, I tell you now, you impact every game. More so than some of the great players who might come off, you get an overseas batsman come in and play a T20 franchise, whatever you want. He might come off 3 out of 8 times. As a captain, you impact with your decision making, because every decision you make within a ball, you will know if that's been the right decision or not. And Owen Morgan is the best in the world at that. And that, for me, is like playing with 12. But I'm sure at some point, as Owen will probably tell you himself, that if he feels that he's not that, then I'm sure he'll do the best thing for English cricket. He always has done.
Something that you've always said behind the scenes is that the decisions you make don't have immediate impact. The decisions you were chatting at Kent and whatever, 5 years down the line, you suddenly see the impact of a decision you made. How long before we see the sort of Rob Key revolution impact? Are you expecting immediate reaction from your red ball team? How long will this process take?
I have no idea how long it will take, but I would say one thing. I don't think it's the Rob Key revolution. I think it's actually going to be my imprint on this, if that's the right word, will be the coaches. It was very much, I'm not going to be the coach of this team, obviously, and my job in this role is to employ the best coaches possible, and it's their team, along with Ben Stokes. If you're the red ball and Owen Morgan at the moment, it's their team to take and run with, and I'm there really just to make sure that everything they say they're going to deliver on, that they're going to do that.
Since taking this job, has there ever been a minute where you've thought, what did I do that for? I had a cushy little number at Sky. I was becoming an excellent, if not already, an excellent broadcaster. Why did I take this job?
When I was on the train on that first day, and I was looking around at about 6:30, and I was thinking, well, this is different. But then you get into it, and you're just talking about cricket, you're trying to work out, you're trying to plan, and that's the exciting part of it. But so, not yet.
Good luck, Rob. We wish you well.
Yeah, good sign off. Well done.
Cheers, mate. That's what you used to struggle with, wasn't it?
Sky Sports Cricket. Feel it all.